Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Napoleon, and today we're back with another Enlisted video. And this time we're going to be talking about Enlisted's latest squad has been given to us during Operation Winter Fantasy. Of course, this is part of Enlisted Squad's review, in which I review the history, the weapons, the stats, and make a recap of the squad. And in today's case, we're talking about the 1180th Infantry Regiment of the 350th Rifle Division of the Soviet Union. Of course, this video has been made possible through the friends at Discord, meaning if you haven't liked, subscribed, or joined Discord, highly suggest that you do. With that said, let's get started. Starting with the history, the 350th Rifle Division was formed in late August 1941 as the Red Army Rifle Division at Kursk. It was later sent to the front in November and served in the south of Moscow during the winter and late August of 1942, which after it was made a bewildering amount of reassignments over the next few months, and then it was practically destroyed, or should I say decimated, at the Battle of Kharkov in February. By the time of the German offensive ended, the 350th was practically destroyed. From December 1942 until March 1st of 1943, it received a total of 6,920 replacements, but on March 17th, it only had an operational strength of 2,557 men in the field against an approximate strength of what should be 10,594. Despite its weakness, it still remained on the front. However, it was soon pulled out and put into the reserve. It then spent the summer campaign under the 12th Army, and in November the 350th was honored in its role for the liberation of Kramatorsk and received the city's name as an honorific. At that time, the 1st Guards of the 1st Ukrainian Front would be remaining on the front for the duration of the war. On August 18, 1944, the division then helped to liberate the Polish city of Sandomierz. It ended the war in western Berlin with a distinguished service record, but was disbanded in May of 1946. In terms of the weapon, we had the AT-44. The idea was to develop models of small arms chambered in the new 7.62x41 cartridges. Many of these projects from various organizations were launched, including Tokarev's, which planned to design an assault rifle. At this time, Tokarev no longer worked in Tula. In February 1943, it worked from Zaltost, where he evacuated other part of engineering and technical staff of TSKB-14, which was then transferred to Moscow. The work on the FV assault rifle, called Tokarev, started in October 1943, and in November 21st of the same year, the model was ready. Tokarev did not completely have a new design, but he based the idea on the AVT-40, which is also in-game, which during this point was also in mass production. This approach to weapon design allowed Tokarev to minimize the risks associated with the developing complex automation elements and shorten the time needed to work on the prototype. Several prototypes were created, of which one of them was the AT-44. That said, let's move on to the specifics. The weapon has a hit power of 9.6, a rate of fire 550, a vertical recoil of 28, and a horizontal recoil of 8. Overall, in my opinion, it's actually a pretty good weapon, as a matter of fact. That said, without going on to the specific suggestions, let's move on to the perks. In terms of the perks themselves, I highly suggest that you get plus 75% medic pack usage speed and minus 40% firearm vertical recoil, which you actually start with, so that's actually a pretty good thing. That said, unfortunately this squad cannot get vitality, so that could be a problem when in battle, so that's that. That said, let's finally move on to the summary. In terms of the summary, the weapon itself is not bad. It actually has good stability, especially at range, has good sights, which is usually the same for the AT-40, and its fire rate is slightly of an issue at close range, but the big but here is that the fire rate is actually 550, which is actually decently okay. It's actually much better than the Horn in my opinion, which is the German equivalent. Another benefit is that you do have a ghillie suit, which does look amazing. However, it could be also a downside since you do technically get targeted first, especially in urban combat. The bayonet on the AT-44 is actually much more useful than you think, with the ability to charge at your enemies, and therefore I suggest that you equip them with a flask. The engineer with this squad is actually quite more useful, essentially allowing you to build a variety of stuff, so that's very good. And most importantly, unlike the Germans, you're actually not going to be facing the Americans, which is actually a pretty good buff, meaning that you actually have a chance standing against the Germans, unlike the Germans who are fighting the United States, which most of them get deleted by the P-47. Overall, in theory, you have a better time than playing as Germans in this weapon. This weapon also, overall, in my opinion, is more useful than the Horn STG, and overall, this weapon is a pretty good weapon. My personal suggestion is to stay at range and don't go into melee unless you absolutely have to, and what I mean by melee, I mean like within 50 yards. This weapon overall is actually a pretty good weapon, so that's that. That said, there's nothing much I can say about this weapon. I think this weapon is a pretty good weapon. Of course, it is no AES-44. As a matter of fact, I think it's a worse version of the AES-44, since the AES-44 does have a rate of fire of 660. So that's that. Overall, it's a better weapon than you think. That said, have a great day, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.